Yeah, they're no longer like giant plants in teeny tiny pots.
It's like Little Mermaid. It's like a Little Mermaid water bottle.
It's the size of my face.
Wow, that's fancy.
Hey there, we're the Reading Queens, and we're here to blab about our favorite books, why we love them, and the book boyfriends we wish were real. Welcome. I'm Valia. Hi.
I'm Kay.
I'm Tess.
And I'm Clari.
And we're here to talk about all the books. I'm excited we're back together, and this is a trope episode because you guys know I love those so much. So yeah, let's start out with just like a little catch up. How's everybody doing? Anything exciting happened this last week?
Apparently not.
What have you taken away?
I have got some initial designs from my cover designer for some new artwork for my dragon books, to redo the covers of those, so that's very exciting.
That's super exciting. Does the new artwork have a dragon?
Yes.
In it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
He did 3 different options, and I'm like, I want all of them.
Well, it's a series.
No.
You can have them for multiple books.
They were 3 different ideas of
Oh, okay.
the covers for book 1, and then the series would then be related. So, yeah,
That makes sense. That's
Yeah.
cool, though. You know, you guys know we love
Yeah,
covers here,
very
so
exciting.
a cover
I
is
feel like
fun.
a dragon book, you've got to have a dragon on the cover. Which is not actually
100%.
That's not actually true. If you look at a bunch of dragon book covers, they don't always have the dragon on the
This
cover.
is true.
Yeah, my covers at the
But then
moment,
that's when you're
my covers at
confused.
the moment just have like a dragon eye on them, so they sort of have a bit of a dragon. But no, these are very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing like a proper mock-up and things. So yeah,
That's super
Yeah.
exciting. I can't wait to see them.
yeah,
I love good dragon covers.
yeah.
It's another topic for another time.
Well, I have something that I have to tell you guys because, as we know from a previous episode, you know, not super long ago, but in the past, I love K-dramas so much. And I watched a new one, and I just wanted to tell everybody about it. Okay, so this one, y'all, okay. I know I'm not the only
The
one.
excitement
It's
is coming.
But first, I know I'm not the only person who reads Webtoons, because I feel like a lot of people who are into young adult or young adult fantasy are getting into Webtoons, especially Lore Olympus, because Lore Olympus is Hades and Persephone.
Yes.
It's super awesome. Anytime you're in like a young adult group somewhere, like on Facebook, and they're like, I need more Hades and Persephone. They're like, this isn't a book, but it's a Webtoons, and you're going to love it. And guess what? I love it. Anyways, that's not the one I'm talking about today. I'm talking about one called True Beauty, which is a Webtoon, and it's super good. It's so dreamy. There's like the classic K-drama love triangle in it. The art style is really, really good. Okay, that's all I'm going to talk about the Webtoon. Just go read it. It's awesome. But I hadn't finished reading the Webtoon, and I realized that there's a K-drama based on it. And I was like, where is it? Can I have it now? And so I downloaded an app just so I could watch it. It has the same name. It's called True Beauty also. And it's super cute. And yeah, I just loved it. It didn't knock any of my top 3 K-dramas out of the ranking. I don't remember if I had mentioned last time, but my top 3 are, what is it called? Boys Over Flowers, Crash Landing on You, which is the one I talked about in one of the episodes, and My Mister. This one was really good. It's so tropey in all the tropey ways that K-dramas are. There's a love triangle. There's all these like funny moments. There's all these swoon-worthy moments. But it was really good. And I am noticing as I continue to watch the Webtoons that it went in a bit of a different direction than the Webtoon went. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll just say that it goes in a slightly different direction with the romance, at least where I'm now, because the Webtoons isn't finished. So as you can imagine, it's going to be like drama with relationships for the end of time. And you know how stressed I get about love triangles. But this one, it's finished. It's a complete K-drama series. So I got the happy ending with the guy she ends up with. I won't tell you who she ends up with in case any of you listeners are going to watch it. Please do. And then someone nerd out with me. But it was so good. It just gave me like all the feels. And K-dramas are really good about like invoking a lot of emotion. Like there's usually some tear-jerking moments. Right. They're really good about having like family moments. But I loved it, and so I was like, okay, I gotta share about this, even though still I'm like the only person on this podcast who's obsessed with K-dramas. I'm still gonna
I'm
talk
getting
about
there,
them.
okay? Calm down.
Join me, please.
We're just gonna have a mini episode that's all K-dramas, and we can just
will
gush
it
about
just be
them.
me talking nonstop for like an hour? Because that's fine. I can do that.
I have to say, I think it's cool when you have like an adaptation of a book or a webtoon or whatever. I think it's cool when it goes in a little bit different direction, just so that the two can stand alone apart from each other and be kind of their own thing. Although I also have to say, I also like it when the movie is an exact replica of the book, like line for line. So it's just, there are benefits either way, but
yeah, I thought it was really cool because, like, honestly, there was a point, I'm not going to say what it was, but I was watching the webtoon and something happened and I was like, no, you cannot do this. Okay, I'll kind of say what it was. There was a time jump. A time jump happened where it was like 2 years or something passed. And I was like, are you serious? And it was like right after this kind of like heartwarming moment, but then like it wasn't really a breakup moment, but it was in those fields. I'm not gonna get too specific because I can't spoil it, but then there was like a time jump and I was just like so crushed. I'm like, no, I don't want a time jump. I want my happily ever after now. And I was only like a fourth of the way through the published episodes, and so I'm like, of course I'm not gonna get my happily ever after. The K-drama does have a time jump too, but it's toward the end, so I knew that my happily ever after was coming. But yeah, I stopped reading at that point, and that's when I watched the K-drama. But it is fun because at first, while I was watching the K-drama, the first few episodes, when something would happen that was not quite what happened in the webtoon series, I was like, this isn't how it goes. But now I'm reading the webtoons to see where I left off, and I'm like, oh, it does not happen like that in the K-drama. What's going on? So it's cool because I'm kind of getting two totally different experiences, and if the webtoons goes in a direction I don't like, I did love how the K-drama went, and I can just go back and remember that I got my happily ever after. Everyone's fine.
It reminds me of, I was just having this discussion the other day with someone about the Count of Monte Cristo, that the book has a completely different ending from the movie. And I actually love them both. I think the movie did a really good job of teaching a different lesson, you know? And
yes.
I thought they did it really well, but I also love the lesson in the book, you know? And I thought that did it very well too. So it's cool when you can have, like you said, two different experiences.
And then you can have a terrible experience, like the 100, for example.
So if you're going to do two different things, then at least do both of them well. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool though. One of these days, I will watch K-drama. I actually put it on my watch list. Like, I made a list because I've been so bad at basically anything, like reading, watching stuff. I just am in a weird work mode right now, so I don't do anything fun. Yay! But I put it on my watch list, the Crash Land Into You, because that's the one that everybody
so
recommends,
dreamy.
and then you just gushed about it. So I was like, oh, fine. I'll put it on the list.
Get ready to freaking cry.
So, oh, okay,
like,
good.
Not necessarily in a bad way, but man, those K-dramas, they know how to tug on your emotions. If there's something that's emotional, whether it's like a family issue, or in the case of True Beauty, the main character is bullied when she's younger, or at least at the beginning, they show like some bullying. There's like these mean girls who are bullying her about the way she looks without makeup. And that's kind of what the theme of this story kind of starts on, is that she is bullied because of what she looks like without makeup. And then she learns how to like wear makeup and goes to a different school, and then like the conflict is her kind of hiding her true self and like finding a guy who loves her for what she looks like in, you know, both versions of herself or whatever. But yeah, like even those bullying ones, since I'm a mom, I'm like if anyone ever says that to my daughter, I will go beat up some teenagers because this is not going to happen. It like makes me teary-eyed. But yeah, they do a great job. Yeah. So like I do have to take breaks because I'm like, I know K-dramas are going to give me those feels. So I can't just watch them right after another because I just can't have my emotions be tugged on like that all the time.
That's funny. The other thing that always is like recommended to me, or recently recommended, like probably in the last like 6-8 months, are Turkish dramas. those are like a really popular thing, especially on TikTok. Like they do a lot of clips, and I'm like, okay, like this gives me like a K-drama feels, in the sense that these people are like, I don't know, like super emotional about these characters and like their lives and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. And there's like a website you can watch them for free. So I'm like, okay, one of these days I will check that out as well. But, you have to be like mentally prepared for all the emotions. But that's fun. Well, speaking of, books in general. You like my segues? I love my segues. For sure. Yeah. Well, I feel like we should just dive into this trope because it's a fun one, which I say every single time. I know. I feel like I just repeat myself. We're just so good
at picking fun tropes.
They're all fun.
Why would we do them if they weren't fun?
Right, exactly. Yeah, but for those of you who are new to our show, each week we pick a book with a specific trope and without telling you what it is. And then the following week, we talk about it and discuss the actual trope and how it worked for the different books we read. So we should just get into it. And Kay's going to start us off. Do you want to tell us what the trope is? Clary kind of already
talked about it already.
Dragons is what we're going to talk about.
In case you guys couldn't tell by the books we picked.
And Clary has a little dragon that she's showing us. You can't see it, but it's in her camera.
Yeah, she's got a lot of dragons because she writes dragon books. So
do I have a lot of dragons because I write dragon books, or do I write dragon books because I have a lot of dragons?
Ooh, that's the question.
Yeah. I think you write dragon books because you love dragons. So that means that the dragons started first before the writing.
Yeah. Cool. I will start us off. I read Serafina by Rachel Hartman. First off, this book is just so beautifully written. The language is rich and it's very literary. There are, you might need a dictionary a little bit as you're reading along.
I did.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. And it's interesting that it is written that way because the main character is a musician. She's a very, very talented musician. And so it's cool that the writing is almost lyrical, that it's like taking that theme of music and putting it into the writing as well. So that was a really interesting thing. But of course, the main thing I'm going to talk about is the dragons. This series was really interesting the way that it used the dragons. So the dragons can shift. They can turn into human. They can have like a human form, but they're still dragons, and they still prefer their dragon form, I guess. But the way that the dragons are was really unique. I had never read of dragons like this, but they're really logical. They're really emotionless. They're amazing at math. They love math. It's like the ultimate thing, Yeah. And they are very interested in humans, how humans can do music, because the dragons are able to be technically perfect with that kind of thing. They can have it be completely perfect, but they don't put the emotion into it the way humans can. And so they're kind of intrigued by that and jealous, maybe. So anyway, it's also pretty political. There's like treaties going on, and they're getting ready to renew this treaty between the humans and the dragons. And that's all I'm going to say about it. You'll have to read the book to find out more.
That sounds interesting. I like that there's music involved. Any book that has music involved, I like to see how they show that.
Yeah, it was very cool to see. It's interesting. I am a musician also, although I wouldn't say I'm, that amazing. But I do have a love of music. And it's funny because as someone who knows a lot about music, I feel like I can kind of tell sometimes when it's written by somebody who doesn't know a lot about music, which is which is fine. I write about things I don't know about, and I probably make mistakes like that. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm not criticizing anyone for doing that, but it is cool to read it from someone who does obviously know about music. So that was cool.
Yeah, I love that too. I can usually, like, I mean, I can't always say for sure, like, oh, this person doesn't know about music, but you can tell when they for sure do, or they at least did a lot of research.
Right.
And like when they just seem to really know like what it takes to play an instrument, maintain an instrument, or if it's like music, the type of things, or singing, like if they know like the type of things that you have to do to like, warm up your voice or whatever. I don't know. You can tell.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely tell. It's really interesting to also like read about music because it's a medium that like it just like reading is, you know what I mean? So it's like you're reading something, but then you're also reading about music, which is something you can also hear outside of it. It's like reading about movies because you know what I mean? Like it's like a weird thing because you can experience it on its own outside of the book, but so you have to have it really like either, like written in the way that you can still get the same experience as if you were listening to it.
Yeah, it's like trying to say what color a smell is. It's like totally different.
Yes.
It's like, how do you talk about music when it's music and you're writing? Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's always really cool to find like books, because I've read books where it had music and I was just kind of like, okay, I'm just gonna skip over this part because it just doesn't do anything. It doesn't evoke emotion, it doesn't show character. It's just kind of like, oh, this person sings, okay, cool. Like you can never just said that because everything you said about it just didn't work for me. I know that's like so critical, but when you are like any kind of musically inclined, you look for those things because you can recognize them. And so yeah, I really like the way Rachel handled that in the book for sure. It's one of my favorite dragon books, I have to say, because I just really, really loved just her writing. And yeah, it was hard for me to read because obviously English is my second language. So sometimes words are a little bit like, oh, what is this? So yeah, I'll look them up and stuff. But with hers, it was just like so beautiful. I couldn't not keep reading and stuff like that. So I really love that about it. Also, the cover is so beautiful.
Yeah,
that is a good cover.
It is an older book too, isn't it? Which is something we actually talked about before. The dragon trend seems to be an older trend. As we like picked out our books and
YA,
stuff, we kind of realized that. So, okay, I'm looking up to see when it came out because now I'm curious.
I feel it was it like 2014, 15?
Oh,
maybe?
Probably. Valia knows everything. She's like,
whatever. I'm just like curious if that's what it was around, or maybe like 12, 13. I don't know. I feel like it was somewhere around that.
I'm finding it. We're wasting all this time for me to look it up. Okay.
It's all right.
2012. Okay, now we know.
Oh, okay.
So it's almost 10 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is about the time that the dragons were popular in young adult.
True.
Though. I feel like a lot of
true.
books came out around that time, which is sad because dragons is such a fun lore. Like it's a fun. Is it a lore? Is that what you would call it? Mythology?
Yeah.
Mythological creature.
Yeah. It's such a fun one, but there's not a lot of it in young adult right now, unless we're wrong. You guys can tell us.
I feel like there's like
if we're wrong.
There's a lot of books with dragons in them that like they're just there, like fantasy books. Like I did it myself in my very first series. I was like, you know what? I want to write about dragons. So I threw in some dragons in the third book and like wove them into the plot, and it was cool. And I feel like there's a lot like that where there's dragons there at some point and they're really cool, but I don't feel like there's quite as many where dragons are like the main focus. Like I grew up, I grew up as like I don't know, I probably read them in like my late teens or early 20s. So I'll count that as growing up on the Dragon Riders of Pern series. And so that's like, it's about dragon riders. Like that's the whole entire series, and there are plots around being a dragon rider. And then there was like Aragon, where it's about bonding with dragons, and that's like the whole point. And then I was like thinking about, I'm like, okay, there's not that many books like that anymore. Like I kept thinking of books where there is a dragon, it's there, but it's not like, it's not
the main focus.
Yeah, exactly. So it's interesting to see that those types of books aren't super current, at least in like the traditional publishing market,
which
Yeah.
well, and we did talk about this before also. It seems like I've seen a lot of urban fantasy dragon books.
Yes.
That trend seems to be strong in the urban fantasy, but maybe not as strong in epic fantasy, which is strange because I think of dragons being an
Right.
epic fantasy thing,
Yes,
not an urban
exactly.
fantasy thing. Yeah.
And lots of the urban fantasy dragons are shifters. And
Yes.
shifters tend to be
Mhm.
more urban fantasy than epic fantasy.
That's
and
true. That is a good
I
point.
grew up reading
Yeah.
all the Dragon Riders of Pern books, and yeah, they're such an integral part of my teenage years as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept. Well, Tess, you can talk about your book now.
Yeah, so I went looking for a dragon book, and like I said, a lot of the ones I was like, wait, these are dragon books. They're like either pretty old, or I've already read them quite a long time ago, or they just like had a dragon and it was there, which I love. Give me dragons. Put more dragons in books. Do it. I don't care if they're about the plot. Just put dragons in there. But anyways, I wanted a book that was about dragons. And I wanted one that was a little different. So I tried Talon by Julie Kagawa. And it just seemed like a really interesting concept. It did not seem anything like the dragon books that I'd read. This is not about dragon riders or bonding with a dragon or like this, where it's not like How to Train Your Dragon. That's like the epitome, I feel like, of the books I usually like look for. And hint, where are they in YA fantasy? Bring me some more like that. I want to bond with my dragon and have him be my best friend. Anyways,
Same.
I picked a book that was not like that because I wanted to see what that was like. And yeah, it was very different. It's focused around the main character. Her name is Ember. And she is a dragon. She's a dragon, but she is the way the dragons are. They're basically dragon shifters, so they can take human form. Her and her brother are part of the like dragon. I don't know what you would call it. The dragon, like.
Team or
I don't know what they
I don't know. I'm like
they're
trying to think of a
I don't
word.
really know what to call it, but it's like the dragons are basically not out in the open. So they are under this umbrella called Talon. And so Talon kind of organizes the dragons. They put the dragons in human form amongst human society and kind of gets them to blend in. So dragons and humans are like not really close at this time. There's even another type of organization. That's a word. Organization. There's another organization which is called St. George, and they are basically dragon hunters. They want to protect the humans from dragons, and they will kill. So Ember is kind of entering this world. She is being kind of watched over by the organization Talon, and they have her living somewhere in a new place with her dragon shifter brother, and they're trying to integrate. And she just wants to be a teenager. She just wants to see what it's like to be a teenager, to go hang out with her friends. But Talon wants her to be kind of following their rules, and she's starting to not really feel like that's what she wants to do. And she ends up meeting a rogue dragon who is a dragon who has escaped Talon's organization and Talon's clutches, and he's kind of off doing his own thing, and he's hinting that Talon isn't exactly what she thinks it is, but he's not telling her too much. So he's kind of, encouraging her to break the rules a little bit more. But at the same time, she also meets a guy from St. George. Both these guys, by the way, are super heartthrobs, and they both like her.
Of course.
So you can...
What a surprise.
Yeah. I'm guessing, I haven't read any of the other books in the series, but I'm guessing maybe there's going to be a love triangle situation. It kind of felt obvious which guy to me she seemed to like a little bit more, but, I don't know. I don't know who she ends up with. It'll be a surprise. So her and the guy from St. George, he's trained not to fall in love with her. He's trained to kill her, but he's also trying to infiltrate. So while she's training to infiltrate human society, he's trying to infiltrate to figure out who is the dragon amongst the humans in this California cool city or town, whatever it is.
So it is urban
It
fantasy.
is, yeah. It's
then.
urban
That's what I was
fantasy
gonna ask.
also.
Okay, it sounded like it.
It definitely feels less I don't know. It reminds me of urban fantasy in the same way that Twilight's kind of urban fantasy, where it's not super like city kick butt. It's a little more like hometown,
Small town.
Yes, exactly, and a little more focused on the romance. So yeah, it was, and I wasn't
paranormal romance.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a little more into the paranormal romance category, because the romance was definitely pretty heavy on that. But yeah, it was really interesting. I like the fact that the guy from St. George, I love that. It's kind of that forbidden romance trope, which like I always forget how many forbidden romances I've actually read. I'm like, yeah, that's totally forbidden romance. The dragon is not supposed to fall in love with the dragon hunter. Dragon hunter is not supposed to fall in love with the dragon. So yeah, that's I don't want to spoil too much more, but it was very different than anything I'd read about dragons, and yeah, it was cool.
It's funny to me because we said that the dragon trope is kind of older, and you said that it was like heavier on romance and stuff like that. I was like, that's how young adult books like used to be, more like romance heavy with like the love triangles or whatever, and the forbidden romance, and then like this world building and stuff like that went around that main plot of the romance and the love triangle and all of that stuff. So that's like really interesting.
Yeah, and even that she falls in love with the rebel, that's actually a very common dystopian trope, which also those kind of books were really popular around that same time. So that is interesting that it's it was right for that time. That was perfect.
Yeah. I love how you can see that too. Like, I wonder if like in 5-10 years we're like listening to our podcast and we're like, oh, those are the things that were popular at that time. Look at that.
Yeah. They're always those
That's cool.
changing trends.
Yeah. And it's really cool to see them, I think. I mean, obviously we like to study trends.
Oh, yeah.
Because for us, but just in general, like it's just such an interesting concept to just like see what people loved, at different times during. It's like with music too, like the music changes, like what people love, during whatever time. And, these kids like discovering the 90s music, and it's like, oh my goodness. And I'm like, okay, like, calm down. This is not classic music. Okay. It's just the 90s. But anyway.
It's just the 90s.
Yeah, it's just the 90s. I know there's some of these books that are like, oh, is that original young adult? It's classic literature? No, it's 10 years old. Calm down.
Well, for young adult, I mean, it seems like that would cycle through faster. You're only a young adult for a few years, so.
It's true.
But you're an adult reading a young adult for the rest of your life.
True.
Yeah. That's true. Well, Clari, do you want to talk about your book that you read?
Yeah, the book I've read is actually even older. I think it was published in 2006. And is not.
Oh my gosh, it's ancient.
And it's not a young adult book. It is a historical fantasy book.
Ooh.
It's called His Majesty's Dragon by Naomi Novik. It's the first in her Temeraire series. And it is set in, mostly in Britain, in the Napoleonic Wars. So there is a lot of conflict to do with Napoleon and what he's doing in battles. And the dragons in her stories are huge. I know they have multiple riders. So there's one person who is the main dragon rider, who it's their dragon and they deal with it and look after it and are responsible for it. And then they have a team of people who come with them, and they then take part in the sea wars. So Napoleonic era is a lot of the ships of the line and the battleships and blocking harbours and all those things. So it has all that, but with dragons in it. So they're the dragons form the aerial corps. The story starts with the main character is a captain of a boat. He's in the Royal Navy, and they capture a French boat, and they find on this boat a dragon egg. And this boat, the French boat, has had all sorts of problems and been delayed, and this dragon egg is about to hatch. And the crew of the British boat, they're too far away from land to be able to do anything with it. So they've then got immediately this problem that they've got this egg, they have to look after the egg, and it's really important to the British war effort that they keep the egg, or that they keep the dragon, because they certainly don't want the French having it. But whoever becomes the Dragon Rider will then have to leave the Navy and join the aerial corps with the dragons, which is sort of looked down on, and that's, prestige wise, that's a huge demotion, because the aerial corps are all a bit they train up in rural Scotland, and they're all a bit on their own, and they have the dragons to look after and things.
They're the outcasts, kind of.
Yeah,
it sounds like.
Yeah. But vital.
Right, exactly.
Like, don't talk to us, but we still need you.
So they all the officers on the boat draw lots to see who's going to be the one when the egg is hatching, to then be there and trying to talk to the dragon and feed it and bond with it. And surprise, the dragon doesn't like that person and starts talking to the captain, because these dragons can actually talk.
Oh,
so they
as soon as they're
verbally
hatched,
talk.
even. Wow.
Yeah. And so then the captain has to make his first mate the captain of the boat to look after the boat, because he's now going to have to look after the dragon. And then they've got this growing dragon on the boat in the middle of the ocean. And, where do they put the dragon? Because they need to balance the boat. And do they give the dragon all of the food that should have fed the crew for the rest of their journey? And then they get to, I can't remember where they get to, but it's like one of the islands off somewhere in the middle of the Pacific, I think. And no, I don't mean the Pacific, I mean the Atlantic. And they then manage to get a message back to the main people who are in charge of the dragons, because the messenger dragons come backwards and forwards. And then eventually he goes off to join the aerial corps and training, much to the dismay of his father, who is his father is one of the British nobility, and he was bad enough that he ran away to sea, and now he's joined he's got this dragon. He shouldn't have even thought of wanting to take the dragon. How dare he do this? And their name, and they had to leave London in the middle of the season, and so there's
oh my goodness.
I love the way you describe these books. It's so exciting.
It is. It's really enthralling, actually. And then he goes off to the dragon school, where they teach you how to fight with your dragon, essentially. And there's all these people beforehand going, it's terrible, and you've got to understand that we do things differently, but nobody before he gets there will explain to him what things are different. And the dragon corps keep all sorts of secrets about how things work that actually people outside of it don't know, because the general populace would probably be horrified. But I'm not going to tell you what those are, because those would be spoilers.
Ooh, intriguing.
I know, we're like, what?
So it is quite a battle book, because obviously it is all about the Napoleonic Wars, and so it ends with a big battle, and there's a number of altercations on the way. There's a little bit of romance, but it's not really. It's sort of a bit on the side.
How long is this series?
I think it's 9 books.
I was like, I was expecting something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds epic. Very epic.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And in the second book, they actually go off to China, because it turns out that the egg was a gift from the China, because the China have dragons, but whereas the British and the French, they see the dragons as a tool, and they're used in war and they fight, whereas they're bred for speed and agility and strength and offensive capabilities. There are some that can spit poison, and there are some that are super fast, and some that are just huge. Whereas in China, the dragons are bred for intelligence, and they are considered equal to humans. So they have pretty much, so they have their own society, and no one would dream of fighting with them. So then, because it turns out that this egg was a gift from the Chinese government to Napoleon Bonaparte. So it was going to be Napoleon's dragon. Which then got
so it
shorted.
was supposed to be for the French.
Yes.
Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah.
That sounds
So then
super
there's-
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've then got the international problems
Espionage,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. Is that the author that does those standalone fairy tales?
She wrote
now in the
Spinning
young
Silver
adult?
as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Naomi
Okay.
Novik.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I know that name. I've like seen it somewhere. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so this is like a tangent really fast before I forget, but this just made me think of a dragon book that I read a few years back, and it's an adult book, but it's a story where you know how there was like the Jurassic Park? Well, this book is a park that was created in China that's all dragons.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
just literally the exact same like storyline as Jurassic Park had.
That's cool,
Where
but
they
dragons.
just
Dragons.
turn, but it's
Oh my
dragons.
gosh, I
yeah.
love that.
That's cool.
So it's like super secretive because they're just like just bred these dragons. It's a thing, blah blah blah. And then they have like a doctor coming in to check to see how, you know, viable it is for them to open it up to the public. And then just like all this crap happens all at the same
I
time.
love it.
And it was just like really, really fun because I love Jurassic Park so hard. Like that's one of my comfort movies. Like I will go back and
Yeah.
rewatch it. And so it was like a really fun book. But I was just like, yeah, that's like they breed and they create dragons.
That's
like
so
it made me
cool.
think of it.
We need more adaptations of Jurassic Park, I think. It's a fun story.
Right? Yeah.
I haven't seen that in
Especially
so
with dragons.
long. My husband's trying to convince me that it's time to let my daughter watch it. She is 9, and I'm just like, I haven't seen it in so long, but I'm remembering it being like really scary.
I
So-
think I was around that age when maybe now I feel like I was around that age when I watched it.
I remember
and
my brother was much younger, but he also used to watch Tales from the Crypt, and he loved The Crypt Keeper. So I'm like, okay, I can't base that off him. But like, yeah, I just remember being like, there's just so much
because there are
horror
little
suspense
kids in the movie.
There
you
are,
know? So
yeah.
It's like,
Right.
But then there's
yeah.
like the arm and the
safe, you know?
blood.
Yeah,
and
true,
I don't know. There's
true.
just a couple
Yeah.
things where I'm like, I'm not quite sure if she's like, because she loves adventure. She loves action and adventure. We have watched all the Lord of the Rings. We watched all the Harry Potter. We watched all the Pirates of the Caribbean, Indiana Jones, all these ones you wouldn't think this like 9-year-old little girl would love. And she loves all of them. So I'm like on the fence. I'm not quite sure if she's ready for that like level of like, because it does have that horror suspense element.
A little
But
bit.
so
yeah.
did the last 2 Harry Potter movies, and she did fine with those. She liked those ones.
That's funny. If it helps, I mean, obviously I can't speak for myself because you guys know I watch like everything
Yeah.
and anything when it comes to scary stuff. But during quarantine last year, I did make my parents watch all my monster movies with me. And we started with Jurassic Park and we did like all 3. And then we did the 2 that came out for Jurassic World. And my mom is not she does not like dinosaurs on TV doing anything. And she really enjoyed them.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I feel like the Jurassic Park is a little more universal than initially thought because she actually enjoyed them. So yeah, speaking of that, this is a side note too, but it made me like laugh so hard. But we watched the Kong versus Godzilla because it came out back in March. And my favorite part about watching that movie is that my mom has like this attachment to Kong. And so the whole time he was on TV, she's like, "Oh, get up, honey.
Oh my gosh.
You're doing great."
That's adorable.
Aw.
It was the cutest thing. Anyway, back to dragons. Sorry.
Small tangent off to dinosaurs.
Yeah, but that sounds really cool though. Like that's such a different take on like the lore, because I mean, even between like the Chinese breeding them for intelligence and everybody else using them for fighting, like that's
I love that they were
fascinating.
so big too. I mean, they're always big, not always, but yeah, that on that big of a scale, that's
Yeah.
cool.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know if I can like commit to reading
A 9 book
That's
series.
such a long series. I get intimidated by long series too. It's
same.
hard.
Yeah, but I haven't even heard of that. I feel like the only thing I've heard her write are the 2 young adult fairy tale things that she came out with in the last, 5 years, is it? Because there was one before Spinning Silver that
Uprooted.
I can never...
Yeah.
I have
Yes,
both of
thank
those
you.
and I haven't read them, but hint, I'm reading them on an upcoming podcast episode someday. At least I plan to, so yeah.
Well, His
Nice.
Majesty's Dragon is on Goodreads' top 100 fantasy books list.
Whoa.
Wow.
Interesting. Wow, yeah. And I haven't heard of it. Like, that's weird.
I actually just barely yesterday saw someone talking about that series. I didn't know that was the first book in the series. So
maybe it's one of those ones that's like actually out there all the time, but like, you know how you know to look for things you've seen, like, and some things just stick in your brain, and once you hear them, you see it everywhere. Maybe that's one of the ones that everyone's talking about.
I wonder if it is.
But like, we just haven't noticed.
Next time we get on the podcast, we're like, guess what? We just saw this book everywhere.
Yeah, it turns out it's super popular.
And it's one that I've seen, and I read it first about 5 years ago, I think. And it's one that I've noticed that people have recommended, and they go, "Oh yeah, I'm reading this, it's great." And then, you know, suddenly I see somebody else completely unrelated go, "Oh yeah," you know. So,
I mean, I guess we should read it, at least the first book, so we can be part of the cool club.
Yay, does that mean I'm in the cool club already?
I guess you
think
are.
So. I mean, top 100 of fantasy, that's a pretty cool club to be in. I probably haven't read like the majority of those books, let's be honest.
It was quite an interesting list actually going through. Like some of them are like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." I'm like, "What the hell is that one on there? What's that? I haven't heard of that."
That's funny. Yeah, I guess I'll have to check it out personally. But
So what book did you read, Valia?
yeah, the book I read is called Scorched by Mari Macunsi, and this book has one of the most beautiful dragon covers I have ever seen. I can't even describe it to you guys. It's super bright. It's orange. It's literally a girl, like a tiny girl in the middle of the cover, and this huge dragon, and she's like hugging the dragon head because he's like wrapped around her. And if you take the dust jacket off, the actual hardcover has like a raised dragon on it.
Cool.
Anyway, I'm obsessed with this cover.
Or like opposite. Is it still called embossed?
Whatever.
If it's
what is it called?
Out? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's so gorgeous, and I'll definitely post a picture of it to our Instagram, and I'll post it in the stories without the dust jacket so you guys can see. Anyway, it's so beautiful. I love it so much. And so this book is a very interesting take on the dragons because it deals with time travel. So it focuses on Trinity, who lives in this, small town in West Texas, and her grandpa, who she's really close with, firmly believes that there's like an actual dragon egg in this town, right? Like he just really believes this lore, and he thinks that, there's a dragon in this town. So Trinity does not, and lo and behold, she starts hearing this voice just kind of talking to her like, "Don't leave me," and it's just like this whisper that kind of follows her around, and she just thinks she's going crazy, because obviously hearing voices
that's more logical than a dragon egg. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And this voice is like asking for protection, like begging for protection. And so nobody else can hear it. It's just her. So that's like her story, right? That's kind of the setup for her. Well, there's two main guy characters because this is young adult fiction during this time. Of course. So there's Connor, right? So he is from the future that has been scorched by the dragon fire. So his mission is he gets sent back to like our time, quote unquote, where she's at, to find the girl, destroy the egg, and save the world from this like destruction. So that's like his mission, right? Then there's his twin brother, Caleb.
They're brothers even?
They're twins, okay? They're twins.
Oh, okay.
Is this a love triangle?
Yes.
With
yes.
twins? Of course it is.
I know. So the Caleb is like the other cocky, undisciplined, blah, 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 obsessed with saving the dragon's brother. Yes,
brother.
exactly. Yes. So Trinity has to figure out which brother to believe, right, when it comes to dragons, because one is like bent on saving them and the other is bent on destroying him. But then she figures out that this voice is actually the dragon egg, and it's the dragon talking to her, asking for protection. And yeah, that's the setup of the book basically. So very fun. Very interesting setup. I loved Trinity's relationship with her grandfather. I thought that was really cute. I feel like I don't see enough of like grandparents being involved in like the people's lives, kids' lives, whatever. And I don't exactly remember what happened to her parents. I don't remember if her parents are gone or if they are present. I just remember like grandfather being like a really big part of her life, and I just love that. And then the communication between her and the dragon was really interesting too, considering, you know, it's just like starts out as a voice, whatever. Obviously I have a favorite brother, and it's probably the unpopular one because shocker, you know, me. But the one thing I really thought was kind of interesting is there's this moments where the brothers, or Connor, I think specifically, which is the one that's like supposed to destroy the egg, there's parts where he like kind of talks about Trinity, and he talks about her in like the future sense. So he's kind of like, oh, she's not like what the history books portray her as. And so I thought that was kind of interesting because this girl is literally just discovering this dragon egg. The dragons exist. This is a whole thing, and she has this destiny whether this dragon's going to destroy or save the earth, right? And she's in history books already. And so like she has to like kind of deal with that concept that she is in history books, and like
it's
her
like
decisions.
Harry Potter, but like reverse.
Yeah.
It's like she knows she's going to be famous in the future. That's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and obviously the brothers already have like a specific idea of who she is in their mind because of what the history books wrote. And when you think about it, like just because it's written in history book, like doesn't mean that it's exactly correct, because it's one person's that's the reconciliation. What's the word?
Yeah,
Recollection.
Recollection.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And history is always written by the victor.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I have a question for you. If both brothers have come back in time, do they both know that they're both there?
Yeah, they do know that they're both there.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think. I don't think Caleb was supposed to come back in time, or he's not supposed to let Connor know that he's there. But like, obviously, it happens and stuff, and it is definitely more. It is definitely more like romancy than, you know, that whole young adult romancy part where they're just like, oh my gosh, he's so beautiful. Oh my gosh, she's so beautiful. Like all that stuff. Which, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I just love that. Not always, but sometimes. And in this book, I just thought it was really fun because it was part of this like really fun lore. And I'm not going to say more about like what happens with the dragon and stuff like that, but it is a trilogy, and it's just, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting because like, dragons is one of those things where like you can really do it well, and then you can really mess it up. So
is this urban also? This is contemporary, like a
I probably would,
or paranormal romance, I guess. If
the
romance is the bigger focus.
I was like, can I make this?
But is it contemporary?
Yeah, I'm like, can I make it apocalyptic? Like, can it be a dystopian with dragons? You know, because it is set in like a small town, but they deal a lot with the fact that the world is destroyed, and these boys are coming from a future that is like dystopian future, basically, or a post-apocalyptic future.
But it's in our time that the story takes place. Okay.
At least the first
kind of
book,
like alternate reality, alternate timeline or whatever, our time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, that was interesting. I don't think I read like any, because this was a reread for me. I read it when it first came out, and I don't think I read any like time traveling magic books at that time. The only time travel was like a historical romance that I read around that time. But I haven't read like anything that dealt with, you know, like saving the world and dragons, obviously. But like, because it's funny because there's not, I'm trying to think, I don't think there's any magic in this book, like outside of the fact that there's dragons.
It's just the dragons.
Yeah. So that's also different, I feel like, because usually there's some kind of a magic involved when it's dragons, at least from the books that I've read that had dragons in them, like they have something else, but I don't believe that this one did. At least I can't remember from my reread.
So is the time travel a little more sci-fi than fantasy?
I think
like
so,
the time travel,
yeah.
like whatchamacallit, the way it
That's cool.
the way it works.
Yeah, it's a very
Dystopian with
it's like a
dragons.
genre mashup, like a lot, and like the cover
That's
is
cool.
just fantasy. I don't know, like urban fantasy.
That's
maybe.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you described the cover, I was like totally thinking like, oh, this is dragon riding fantasy. Like that's the feels that it evoked. And then you start talking about it. I'm like, okay.
You're like, what?
And then like and then like the dystopian aspect. I mean, that's cool though.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't always work when writers do like genre mashups like that, but sometimes it really does, and it like is really cool.
Yeah. I really liked it. Obviously, since I love it. So many years later, even in the reread, it was fun.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting because once again, it does follow those, 10 years ago, this was like the thing to do.
This was what was popular.
Yeah.
So it probably wouldn't be as popular right now just because they need that enemies to lovers. Instead of
a lot more angst,
Yeah.
a lot more
Although
angst
if one of them was sent back in order to stop her and to destroy the dragon egg, then that's sort of enemies to lovers.
That's true. That is
Assuming
true.
that
It
they become
depends
lovers.
how much angst is between them, because sometimes it's like they're set up where they shouldn't like each other. Like, 'cause that's like the book I read. They were set up to not like each other, but they liked each other like right away.
Yeah.
They just like he just kind of thought he shouldn't, but he just automatically did.
Yeah, in this book, it was kind of the same because she has right away you can kind of tell which brother she is, like she caters to, I guess you would say, like her feelings to cater to more towards this one brother. And then I feel like it was done just so that brother didn't win in the end. If that makes sense. Because then you're like, oh, okay, well, then the other one is probably the one that's going to get it because they're the more enemies versus not. And in this case, either brother can be the enemy. That's the thing. It's because one is literally saved to destroy the egg and her, and then the other one came to save the dragon, but he kind of doesn't care about her because it's about the dragon. So either one of them can be the enemy person in this case. So yeah, but I always pick the one that I'm like, there's no way you guys are gonna end up together. But here I am again, getting hurt. It's fine.
Oh my gosh.
I know, so dramatic. Anyway, that was my book. That's what I read.
Nice. That was cool that two of them were more the urban and two were more epic. I guess historical fantasy is not even epic.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You can really put a dragon into any book, huh?
There you go.
There's a really fun series on Jane Austen and dragons where they've rewritten Pride and Prejudice and put dragons in it.
With dragons?
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I mean, there's a zombie one. I know that, but I haven't heard about the dragons.
There's a dragon one.
That's so funny.
It's hilarious.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Well, we do have other books, dragon books, that we were going to recommend to you guys, but that wasn't one of them. But if you want to check it out. Okay, you want to start us off with the recommendation?
Okay. Yes, okay. Mine is, the series is called The Dragon Kings by Kimberly Loth. And the first book is called Obsidian. So this one is more the urban fantasy kind of dragons where they're dragon shifters.
Ooh.
So I know, so exciting. Yeah, so the Dragon Kings.
Okay, Tess, you had a recommendation too, right?
I have a recommendation. It is by someone who's here today. I'm recommending Dragon Shift by Clari. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this is Dragon Shifters, but it's epic fantasy. So the main character is a girl. Her name is Birgith, and she has been brought up in the Bear Clan. So there's the land they live on is split into the areas for 4 different shifters. So there's bears and wolves and foxes and cats, and they think that all the dragons are extinct, but she knows that her mother is a dragon, and she lives with her father, but she's had to tell everybody, or when she was born and he was then presented with her to bring up, he had to tell everyone that he found her in the forest because he couldn't claim that it was actually his daughter. So she's been brought up and everyone thinks that she's just adopted, but she is actually his daughter. So she's half a bear shifter and half a dragon shifter. And she's then trying to find her family. So it starts off with everybody when they're 16, they have to be tested to see if they can shift, and if they can shift, then they're accepted into the clan, and if they're not, then they're classified as human.
Okay.
So it starts with her preparing for and then having this test to see if she can shift into a bear. Well, for her, it's a test of what is she going to shift into, because nobody knows if she's going to be a bear or what she's going to be. And she's terrified that she's going to shift into a dragon, and then everyone will want to kill her, and then try and spark a dragon hunt and go and kill all the rest of the family as well, that she's never met. But actually, she's unable to shift, so she's then classed as a human, and she has to move out of the village and go and live with all the other humans, and they are sort of servants, so she has to do lots of tasks, and she's a bit trapped in this village because she can't go anywhere because she's just a human. And then she's got her dragon family somewhere out there that she's then got to try and find, because she knows that she has 3 brothers as well. So yeah, then she goes on a bit of an adventure and explores the rest of the world, and yeah, shocker, she does find them. I'll let you
Oh no.
Well, I love that you did dragon shifters in an epic fantasy setting, because that's really cool. Because we've been talking about all day how like there's a lot of dragon shifters and more of the paranormal. Oh my gosh, I can't say that. Paranormal romance and urban fantasy. But I love that you have dragon shifters in epic fantasy. That's super cool.
Yeah, it's definitely different. And then
I think it's cool too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the other book I was going to recommend is, well, it's a series by Sarah K.L. Wilson called Dragon Tide. And it's a very cute series, where, and it's a series of novellas, so they're a lot shorter, so it looks like they've got lots of books in there, but actually they're all much shorter than novellas. The main character is called Celesca, and she had been rescued, or let me think what I'm trying to say. When, as a child, she was sort of shipwrecked onto this island,
Okay.
where people lived. But the island is cut off because any boats are attacked by blue dragons. So nobody on the island likes blue dragons. And they think that they attack boats and they lure people into the water, and then they're never seen of again. But she finds this just hatched baby blue dragon that she then decides she has to look after. So she's got this like cute little baby dragon.
What a cute baby dragon.
Yeah. Exactly. And then she's trying to look after it and not let anybody know that it's there because they won't be happy. And then this ship arrives, which is like amazing, because how do ships get there? Because all the ships are attacked by blue dragons. And it turns out the ship has come there looking for her, because she is a princess and they want to take her away and use her magical skills that it turns out she has. And then she's trying to protect the village and the island where she lives, and also look after her baby dragon.
That
And
sounds
then
like
it
fun.
turns out she has to, and she has to save the world as well.
Of course.
Because I think there's like prophecies and there's like bigger things going on, and yeah.
That sounds so
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah, that sounds
like a
awesome.
win-win.
That's
Yeah,
like one
it
of
is
the so I know that Sarah K.L. Wilson is an indie author, and that's kind of one of the things we were talking about earlier, that in at least the traditional published market, we don't get a lot of those dragon rider, dragon bond with a baby egg type thing. But like, I love that she is doing that, that she is really taking that trope that I love, that like whole How to Train Your Dragon type thing, and she's writing those books. So they're still out there, you know, just not all of them are super popular, big name traditional books right now. but they're still out there.
Yeah, if you guys have any recommendations for us for dragon books, indie
Yeah,
or
give us more
trad, like just let
dragons.
us know. Yeah, because obviously we like them, we just don't
Yep.
know anything like where they to find them. So yeah. Anyway, that was fun. Obviously, tropes, dragons, you know. And yeah, I just wanted to remind if you guys ever wanted to pick up any of the books we're discussing, we do have a bookshop page and also an Amazon book club for those books that are only available on Kindle and not paperback or hardback. But I'll leave the link to the shop and everything and our websites if you want to learn more about us in the description, so you guys can just, you know, learn more about us. I guess I'm just repeating myself. It's fine. But next week, Hannah and Joanna and Allison will be back. But before we say goodbye to these ladies, I want to know what they're reading next week or this week, I guess. Okay, what are you reading?
I'm going to be reading Caraval.
Ooh.
Nice. So we have talked about this.
I've had it on my list for way too long. I'm finally getting to it.
Yay. Tess, what about you?
I am currently reading A Court of Silver Flames. I've been really excited because I got the Illumicrate really pretty special edition with the illustrated dust jackets for the whole series. And I really like this one so far. It feels a lot more like Crescent City of style of writing than it does of the actual like earlier books in the Court of Thorns and Roses series. So I'm actually finding I like it a lot more than I anticipated because I like Crescent City better than like any of her other books. So
Nice.
So I'm excited to finish it. I'm like so hooked right now.
Sweet. Clary, what about you?
I'm reading Shadow and Bone. I feel I may have said that last week, but I'm still reading Shadow and Bone.
Nice.
It's good. I'm enjoying it.
Well, good. I'm actually going to be reading a contemporary adult because I'm still in the weird reading rut. So I'm trying all the genres until I get out of it. But it's Beach Read by Emily Henry, I believe her name is. But it was like super loved on Bookstagram. And I've had it for like a year now since it came out. So I'm going to read it. Hopefully. We'll see. I make no promises at this point, so. But thank you for listening to The Reading Queens. Before you go, please take a moment to leave us a review and follow us on your favorite podcast platform. Then stay tuned for next week and happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.